Are we back or? It seems like we're back. I'm sure that it's using network, but it is. It's definitely not anything to do with updates or anything like that. Like I've checked that shit before, and it just will not fucking like. There's nothing going on. It's just the internet that's going, yeah, fuck you. I don't want to work right now, and then it just will not work, which is super annoying. But you know, as long as we're back. But anyways, yeah, as I was saying, King Julian, you know what's wrong with the stream at this point. It's just what it is. There's literally nothing I can do about it. I have to move in order to fix this, and I'm hoping that I get to move soon, because I'm fucking sick and tired of this bullshit. I mean, it cuts out because it cuts out, man. That's just it's just the nature of things. Dude, this can't be right. This can't be fucking right. Like, this company has actually blocked this video. It's a company called Super Bam or some shit like that. Are you not allowed to, like, stream Joe Rogan's content? Surely you should be. It might be a Spotify thing. Like, Spotify might be insisting that no, we will not allow for any of the Joe Rogan stuff to be streamed. No, YouTube didn't ban him because one of the clips we watched was on YouTube. But I mean, yeah, that's just just fucking done then. The assholes fucking banned us, boys. And it's not just so, this is like super bullshit. It's not even that you're allowed to watch the video. It is blocked. Like, I can't even say, well, okay, fuck it, I won't get any money from this, but, you know, who gives a shit, right? It is just entirely blocked. Yeah, it does suck monkey dick. That's true. That's probably why they're blocking it, because it's exclusive to Spotify, right? Look at Superbam's website. Yep, I've checked. I've checked them out. It is such a scam-ass bullshit, bro. Like, copyright law is a joke, bro. No. This is not a strike. This is just they blocked the video, so you're not allowed to. It's not a copyright strike. It's just a copyright claim. But you can see here, this video was claimed. That video, I wasn't allowed to make any money on that video. This video was claimed. Bro. Oh my god. Like, most of our videos are fine, but every once in a while we have a video that just goes, fuck you. We will not be giving you that money. Oh my lord. Must we always do this? Oh, King Julian, I'm moving to Gordon's Bay, which is literally just the next town over. But they have Frogfoot internet, and from what I've heard, Frogfoot is actually very good. So, hopefully that remains true, you know? Hopefully that remains true. There is some stuff that I quickly want to do. Hopefully the internet is better, because we never used to have this. Like, this is the worst it's ever been for me. Like, you know, my internet has never been this bad. Like, we would sometimes have internet problems. That's just South Africa for you. There are days where, you know, the internet just doesn't want to work well. But this is the worst it's ever been, where there's literally just days where I can't fucking stream at all because the internet just keeps fucking out and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm trying to... Dudes, if you guys know of a clips editor, let me know. If you know of someone that can edit. I could use a fucking clips editor. Where is the shit? I literally... Everyone kept DMing me about crap. Like new lore that came out. And now I'm not seeing jack shit of it. Am I just looking in the wrong place? There's like lore books, apparently. When am I making TikTok content? The answer to that is never. I don't see the fucking point in TikTok content. Even though a lot of people are telling me that that's the best way to get noticed. You have to make YouTube shorts and shit. But I don't want to, because I don't see the point. It's in a book that costs $100? Jesus. No. If there's lore, it's going to be on Wowhead. It's in-game books. So there's apparently like a bunch of in-game books. But I have no idea. That's the novel. What fucking in-game book are they talking about? The Titan Slander. Do you have a link? Because it seems like, because people were telling me there's in-game lore books about the Titans. CC says, yeah, I'm with cool ideas. I won't leave cool ideas. I like cool ideas. I just don't fucking like Octotal. Oh, thank you very much, Apocalypse. I appreciate that. Alright, my mod's coming through once again. Fucking love it. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, this guy started at a weird place. Okay, let's open this in... No, something's wrong here. Why am I getting just book 3 here? That makes no sense. Hold up. Yeah. I'm seeing the images here. I just clicked on this because this is also new in-game book progress stuff. So... It doesn't seem like all of the pages are available here, because there's 3, and then there's 4, and then you get the full record report of a year. Three and 4, right? Okay, so So these are the books that we're currently, like, people are talking about currently. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure what these books represent, so we'll go through them now and we'll check them. But okay, so Edicts of the Prime Designate, Volume 742. First, all historical records documenting the advancement of the Black Empire are to be purged. Paint that age as one of chaos and misery, a pernicious blight that we keepers eradicated. With the old gods locked in confinement, there should be no evidence available to contradict our assertions. Surely, if you care for these mortals, you would not wish to see them led astray into darkness. Huh. Okay, that immediately makes me wonder about things. Yeah, it 100% proves propaganda. Because okay, so first and foremost, they expunged all records of the Old Gods and the Black Empire and the Purge. So immediately, everything that the Titans have ever told us about the Old Gods, the Black Empire, the Mad Things, all that shit is completely and utterly thrown into suspicion. You can't believe anything they told you. Because they're effectively saying here that we can't have any evidence that contradicts our assertions. So first and foremost, their assertions are that Yesaraj was killed and that they locked up all of the Old Gods. So they won the war, they locked up all of the Old Gods, which doesn't seem to be the case, especially considering the fact that they didn't want any evidence to contradict those assertions, those specific assertions. And then also, they painted it as a time where the Old Gods were the enemy of mortals. As a note to remember, we don't know if this is before or after Loken's manipulation of Odin and Helia. Yeah, obviously, there's still much that we don't know. But it's still very interesting to me that... What were they hiding? What exactly is it about the Old Gods that they did not want us to know? So second, attribute all accomplishments and works of wonder to the Titans alone. Despite the relentless arguments made by some of you, this is not a fallacy. After all, can anything truly be said to exist until it has been ordered? Of course not. Therefore, it is irrefutable that the Titans are the source of all creation. Bro! This is kind of big. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This, in my opinion, is how you do retcons. And anyone that wants to get angry, just to be clear, anyone that wants to get angry over this and be like, oh my god, they're just contradicting fucking the Chronicles and whatnot. Yes, because the Chronicles were confirmed Titan propaganda. We already know that it's Titan propaganda. We already know that the Chronicles is not to be trusted because the Titans lied in it. I've shown you a lot of the lies here, but this now even shows more of it. The Titans claimed that they ordered Azeroth. So they told us that they made the dream. They told us that they created the different the land mass, that they removed the Asaraj, that they destroyed the Black Empire, that all of these things were theirs. They created it. It turns out that's not true. Despite the relentless arguments made by some of you, this is not a fallacy. After all, can anything truly be said to exist until it has been ordered? Of course not. Well, one could argue absolutely. Disco option, you bastard. Thank you for the 2 and sub. 10 months, part of the DJ Nation. Appreciate you, fam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah. Just because something does not have order. Now, you have to understand, the void operates within chaos. Now, this is what the void is. If you go back, so in order to understand this, you have to look at the void through the eyes of Lovecraft, because the Old Gods and the void is very much sort of built upon the ideas of Lovecraft. Now, in the Lovecraft sort of mythos, the Old Ones, or the Outer Gods, did not actually come to end humanity. They came to free humanity. They didn't believe in the restrictions placed on humanity by religion and by the gods of humanity. They believed that humans should be free, that humans should be absolutely free to be as chaotic as they choose to be. So if humans don't want to be chaotic, they don't have to be, but it must be up to them. It must be their choice at the end of the day. They wanted to free humanity. Now, their version of freedom was still not quite freedom, but it was kind of freedom. And this is very much, I believe, what the Old Gods and the Void want as well. It is a sort of freedom, a moment in time where you can throw off the shackles of your existence and truly be who you were meant to be. And it seems like the Titans are confirming that. Something I said years ago already, that at the time people were like, no, clearly the Void is the enemy. Is it so clear now? Considering that the Titan Keepers themselves said that no, we will speak of this not at all. All works of wonder, all accomplishments shall be attributed to the Titans alone. We will not speak about things that the Old Gods may or may not have done. We will not mention things that may be attributed to the Old Gods. We will only and ever mention the Titans and all things of the Titans. They may actually be the enemy of all. Prime Designate, I am writing to confirm that the wreckage discovered on our shores was indeed the remains of our most recent expedition to Avaloran. There were no survivors. This marks the third failed attempt to reach that accursed place in the time since I assumed my post. Avaloran? Am I just not remembering a place on Azeroth, or is this not a place that exists? At least not currently. Or is it a place in Dragonflight that I just don't know about because I haven't played Dragonflight yet? Ramnax, how you doing, brother? Dude, the Titans are assholes, 100%. Headless Horse, take care of yourself, brother. This marks the third failed attempt, so they're trying to get to some place. While I would not presume to question either your authority or your determination, I pray to the Titans that the rumors I hear of a fourth expedition are mere speculation rather than fact. Surely you can see that further pursuit of the heretics is folly. Yes, they must be made to answer for their crimes against Inaria and the other keepers, but their defenses are not to be underestimated. Bro, were there keepers that ultimately turned against the Titans? Could that be what Alavora is referring to? Avaloran? Is a mythological place in Warhammer, but in WoW, nothing we know has been called that? Yeah, in WoW, Avaloran is not a place that we know of. But considering this, it appears like either mortals did something to the Titan Keepers, betrayed the Titan Keepers, or Titan Keepers betrayed some of the Titan Keepers. Dude, could this be why Odin ultimately betrayed Loken? Remember Xalatath? Xalatath tells the priests to ask Odin if he remembers Loken's final words to him, and then Odin kills you. And we have speculated about this a million times in the past. What could those words have been? What exactly could have upset Odin so much? Could this also be these heretics? Could that also be why? Bro, if this is in the realm of Dragonflight? Noria, how are you doing? If this is in the realm or in the context of Dragonflight, could it be that the dragons, specifically the aspects, were not created as it were as we believe it to be? Go back to the first book here, or the second book here. All accomplishments and works of wonder to the Titans alone. So we were told that it is the Titan Keepers that blessed the Dragonflights. But what if that's not true? What if it's the heretics that created the Dragonflights? And they were then told that, no, this will not be a fallacy, because ultimately the Titans are the ones that create things. If they do not give order to things, that they really create anything. So the Titans may have created the aspects, but the dragons may actually have been the result of the heretics, at least insofar as this is concerned, wherever Avaloran is and whatever these heretics may be. So the next one is, the resources required to breach their lines are simply beyond our current capabilities, at least not without jeopardizing containment of the prisoners in our charge. Though I agree there is risk in allowing their strength to grow, evidence suggests that the aggressive nature of the heretics will cause them to turn on one another and weaken their resolve. If we can be patient, an opportunity for retribution will present itself. We totally only gave them arcane blessings, 100%. Yep, that's how dragon aspects were made, 100% pure arcane blessings. True. So on the other side of Azeroth, we don't see it on our map. It's past the Forbidden Sea. I could... Whoa, my god, dude. If we're going on to the other side of Azeroth in Dragonflight, I am all for it. Realistic, how you doing, brother? Based on Ballet video, one of the books references Tyr putting something in the water that is absorbed by dragon eggs to prevent the evolution of another Galakrond. So, there's a number of things here, but heretics suggest that some of the Titan Keepers joined the Old Gods, or at least sided with the Old Gods, because this entire thing starts where they speak about the Black Empire and the records that need to be purged. In other words, it cannot be known to us that some of the Titan Keepers joined the Black Empire. Because now remember, the Old Gods could not change or influence the Titan Keepers. This is why they introduced the Curse of Flesh. But it is 100% possible that some of the Titan Keepers realized that the Old Gods are not, in fact, the enemy. That it might actually be the Titans that is the enemy. I will tell you this for now. Anyone that changes records and makes things seem like, like makes themselves seem better than what they actually are, I do not trust. We know Radin succumbed to the Void in BFA, but even Sargeras was a heretic. Sargeras, maybe. Although I'm not sure if Sargeras was ever called a heretic. Does that mean Azoth isn't actually dead? What if he just went deeper into Azeroth? I don't think so. I don't know, but there is a realm in which this Avaloran, this mystical realm, may have some kind of anchor for all of the Old Gods. Because they do say here that we should have no records of the Black Empire, and that no one should know the truth of what happened. So it says, with the Old Gods locked in confinement, there should be no evidence available to contradict our assertions. In other words, we locked up the Old Gods, don't worry about it. They're locked up. That's the assertions that they've made, right? They've locked up the Old Gods. And they have. But what if the Old Gods are anchored in Avaloran? So, by killing the Old Gods, we simply sent them back to their sort of realm. The realm that their heretics escaped to. He was indeed declared a heretic and an abomination at the confrontation before he sucked up Mardum. But if Sargeras is a heretic too, then it could be any force the Titan Keeper swapped to would still be heresy. That is true. That is actually true. Apocalypse. Wait, what if Light and Order made a pact to wipe out Shadow and Void? I mean, the Old Gods do say that the Light have struck a bargain with the enemy of old. This could be what they were referring to. I find this wild. Okay, so it speaks of the heretics just being way too strong at the minute for them to actually conquer them. The resources required to breach their lines are simply beyond our means. And then the final one, I beseech you, Prime Designate, let the fire of your wrath cool, at least for now. Its embers will be rekindled in due time. If not, I fear that I will soon be authoring yet another report of a lost expedition. Its final remnants dashed upon rock and wave. With all respects, Watcher Parathilus. The prime designate sounds like Odin. I'll tell you why it sounds like Odin. Odin heads off into the distance and he creates his own kingdom. He reaches into the Shadowlands, extends his influence into the Shadowlands to get power over death so that he can create his own army. If not for this purpose, then for what, I ask you? Why did Odin need his own kingdom, his own army, and more specifically, his control over life and death, if it wasn't to create the ultimate army? What earthen report? D-Rocker. Link it to me? With Haley and Radain's help? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. So it could be deceitful, so Loken could be playing double agent, but it could also not be, right? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. Okay, hold up. I'm quickly checking Discord. D-Rock. Even more books from Alderman. Okay, here we go. We've got more books, boys. We've got more books. Observational report. Fuck. Just get bigger. Please. Oh, for the love of cunt. Let's see if I can just zoom in. That should work, right? All right. So, observational report, Earthen. Fellow watchers, when you were assigned to observe the state of our Titanforge subjects, who regretfully fell under the influence of flesh, the keepers could not have anticipated the effort necessary to follow them as they spread throughout the world. I shall do my best to ensure your perseverance is recognized, but for now, you are to continue your duties until a new directive is authorized. Ace the Base, how you doing, brother? I mean, of course, Prime Designate Odin needs the ultimate army. His task is to defend Azeroth, and he doesn't trust uplifted elemental lizards. Maybe. It is apparent from your reports that the degree of transformation in Titanforge subjects is significantly diverse. There is no group in which this variance is more easily observable than the Earthen. While some have succumbed entirely to the malady, such as the Earthen who emerged from Uldaman and called themselves dwarves, others remain resistant, whether in full or in part. One particularly notable variant can be found in the Earthen contingent dispatched to investigate the fissure detected in Sector AR-938. For further details, search records related to geological anomalies. In the course of their duties, these Earthen began to manifest behaviors analogous to those which would one day be apparent in the self-styled dwarves, despite the two groups being separated by vast swaths of time and distance. One particularly notable variant can be found in the Earthen contingent dispatched to investigate the fissure detected in Sector AR-938. For further details, search records related to geological anomalies. In the course of their duties, these Earthen began to manifest behaviors analogous to those which would one day be apparent in the self-styled dwarfs, despite the two groups being separated by vast swaths of time and distance. Huh. I mean, we know that the dwarfs were once Earthen, right? So they were Titan creations. They were not robots, but literally made of earth, made of stone. And they got cursed with the curse of flesh. According to these books, at least, it's not the curse of flesh, it's the influence of flesh. In fact, based on their origin dates, I could identify no corollary at all between these populations. Yet, while their behaviors, language, and demeanor show many similarities, for example, assigning Sector AR-938 the colloquial name Kaz Algar, physiologically, the two groups remain distinct. In this distinctiveness? Is this distinctiveness due to exposure to the unique qualities of the anomaly? Or is there another reason? We require more data before a conclusion can be reached. As ever, your aid in this analysis remains invaluable. Remember, we are the eyes of the Titans. Respectfully, Watcher Millennia. And then we have the wreckage. We've seen this one. I beseech you, to my staunchest allies. My noble friends, forgive me for keeping secrets, but I instructed Sentinel Telandris to withhold this message until you had safely reached your destination. If you are reading this, then our worst fears have been realized. I have fallen to our foes, murdered on the orders of the treacherous Loken. But fear not. Basically, the old gods did us a solid and gave us flesh and possibly free will. To me, that is what the old gods did. And it seems like that is what they're referring to here as well in these books. The old gods gave us flesh. They gave us freedom. They gave us the ability to choose for ourselves. Because they explain in this prior book here, like, all of the earthen that fell to the influence of flesh started to spread out. So they immediately gave up their sort of following of the Titans and just spread out on their own. So that's literally what this is saying. The old gods gave us... dude, the Titans are assholes. And even more so than ever before, the Titans are assholes. So Yogg isn't such a bad guy? No, the Titans are not... Oh, the old gods are not bad guys. It's what I've been saying the whole fucking time, and everyone keeps disagreeing with me, but I have been saying this forever. The old gods are not bad. The Titans are not necessarily bad. They're just bad for us. But they clearly, in terms of the old gods at least, they did not like what the Titans were doing, for whatever purpose. Okay, so let's see. My notable friends, forgive me for keeping secrets. But fear not, for I have prepared for this dark eventuality. Along with the discs of Norganon that you carry, I have hidden another disc that holds a record of my own memories. Telandris will ensure it is safeguarded within the depths of Uldaman until such time as it can be safely retrieved. I have fashioned the Refti to be unquestionably loyal to me. Before departing Valdrakken, I left a gift in the care of the dragon aspects. Though they are unaware of its true purpose, the artifact can be used within the halls of Uldoris to outwit Loken's malignant schemes. When it is safe to do so, bring my memory disk back to Uldoris and retrieve the item I gave to the aspects. You will know what to do next. Dude, the fact that Loken is coming in as well, and I really hope that Loken is joining in this one. The malignant schemes. It seems like the Titans, things didn't go as swimmingly for the Titans when they first arrived on Azeroth as they would have us believe. Dearest Arunaria, the most noble Arcadus, I place my trust in you. When we stand together, nothing can overcome our unity. Yours always, Tyr. Dude. I think they're trying to bring Tyr back. The discs of Norganon, right, that they carry, and another hidden disc that holds a record of his own memories. I think that's why we're looking for those discs. You think it's bigger than Tyr? No, I'm talking about why they want us to do this. I'm not talking about why the Primalists want these discs. Because there I can agree with you. I think the Primalists want these discs because they're trying to bring Galakrond back. I think the dragons are sending us out to find the discs of Norganon as well as this other hidden disc because they want to bring Tyr back. Because he was a rat for the Titans? I mean, not so much a rat, but if they want their power back, it could be argued that they need Tyr. Or at least these memories. So if they can't bring him back, they need his memories, because what they need is how exactly did he make them aspects. I think that's what they need. I think that's what's on these discs. They need to know what exactly did he do to make us aspects. Yep, the objects are a system shutdown, turning off all the Titan facilities. Dude, so much fucking intrigue. So much intrigue. Oh my god. This is what WoW needed. This is what WoW needed. I think we just went through this, D-Rocker. My attention. Wait, Keepers. Edicts of the Prime Designate Keepers. It has been brought to my attention that as of late, many of you have become fascinated by the emergence of mortal beings. That is, creatures born of flesh, rather than crafted of stone and steel, like our loyal Titan Forged. While my initial impulse was to eradicate these aberrations before they evolved further, I now believe they may prove useful if properly controlled. Bro, like, what the fuck? Come on, man. Like, what the fuck? Anyone that still trusts the Titans is high as shit. Yet even as we guide their development according to the edicts of the Titans, we must always remember that mortal minds are destined to be small and incapable of complex understanding. Therefore, as your Prime Designate, I must establish a few minor but necessary regulations to govern your interactions with these nascent beings. Well, okay. First, all historic records documenting the advancement of the Black Empire are to be purged. So we weren't allowed to know anything about the Black Empire. We weren't allowed to, like, we were to believe that the Titans and the Titans alone created everything. That's what that page says. Do not share knowledge of the first ones. Mortals could not conceive of the wonders that the Makers granted to the Titans in Zeroth Ordis. Did I not say that there's more Zeroth realms? Did we not believe this? Ladies and gentlemen, we are being blessed. Zeroth Ordis is where the Makers granted the Titans. That's where the Titans were created, in Zeroth Ordis. So we now have evidence that the Titans are exactly like the Eternal Ones. They're exactly the same. Thus, learning of the progenitors would only confuse them. It is enough that mortals know the Titans brought order to the cosmos, and that they are owed deference. Dude, what if the Titans didn't even really bring order? Dude, there's so much here. While some among you would prefer to argue these points further, such debate can no longer be tolerated. I remind you that I speak with the authority of the Titans, and any further dissent may cause me to question whether you have succumbed to outside influences. Remember, life is chaos. It must be controlled. Life is chaos? So life comes from the void. Dude, this just... I'm reading this, and what I'm hearing is, Akalon, you were 100% correct the whole time. The void is the outside source. It is the outside force. It's the force of the universe. No, it's not your internet, it's mine. Don't worry about it. My internet's dropping at the minute. It's the force in the universe that creates life. True life. Not stone, not flesh, not stone, not elements, but actual life. It's only the void that can do that. Nothing else can do that. If you look through Zeroth Mortis, most of those things are constructs. Look at Zuval. Zuval looked mortal. But as soon as we killed him, Zuval returned to being a construct. He only appeared mortal. But everything that the first ones create are constructs. They can't create life. It's the one on the outside. The force that is not part of everything else. That creates actual life. Unless they're actually talking about life and the void allowed the force to infect the forged. We know what uncontained life can do from Draenor. They could be talking about life, Apocalypse, but I would argue even there's a good chance that life as we know it in our universe is also just another Zeroth realm, right? Just another Zeroth realm where they sort of try to. This is the progress report. For Uldoris. I think we saw this one. Yeah, this one we did see. This one we did bring up. Unless, of course, there's something that I'm missing that we didn't see in the original links. Cyanide, but think about how the Titans claimed that the Twisting Nether became, or was created. The Twisting Nether was created where the light and the void clashed. Which is why the Twisting Nether is teeming with chaotic life. The demons are actually alive. They're flesh. Many of them are flesh. We can actually kill them. We can fight them. So, in my mind at least, the void seems to be the one on the outside. The power that can actually create life. So it does not order. It does not create absolute order. It creates life. And life is chaotic. Which makes it the one on the outside. Flesh is his gift. He is your true creator. Exactly. It is the void. It's the one on the outside. At least from where I sit. Comprised the water. I thought the Twisting Nether was just as old as the void. My mistake. Apparently not, but again, that's according to the Titans. And as we've learned just in this last few minutes, the Titans are not to be trusted. Nothing the Titans have told us so far makes sense. As you requested, I offer the following reports on the progress towards objectives. I am pleased to say that the halls of infusion are now operational, though the work of imbuing order magic into the wellspring is only beginning. I remain optimistic that the process will prove effective. Already, we are detecting reduced levels of contamination. I hope your investigation into how Yogg-Saron comprise these living waters will yield answers. What? Chat. Is it just me, or does it sound like they're talking about the Well of Eternity? Archeol, you motherfucker. Thanks for the prime sub, dude. Really appreciate that. 12 months, part of the DJ Nation. Appreciate you, fam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dude, but this means that everything we know about the Well of Eternity is wrong. So there's one of two options here. One of two options, right? The first one is, no, the well inside the halls of infusion. No, it says here, I'm pleased to say that the halls of infusion are now operational, though the work of imbuing order magic into the wellspring. All right, yeah. Okay, never mind. These are connected. I thought that they were doing the work from within the halls of infusion, and this was a different, like, the waters they were talking about was a different place. Sorry, I see what you mean now. That fucking stupid moment there. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Luco, for that. Okay, so I am pleased to say that the halls of infusion. Okay, so Yogg-Saron comprise these living waters will yield answers. Dude, if you don't believe that the void is the givers of true life at this point, this is the second one we have now. The void creates life from the Titans' constructs. They create life. The gift of flesh. Flesh. Life. Without flesh, there is no life. The void is the one that creates that. Yogg-Saron then goes, and he comprises living waters. So waters that either is alive on its own or can give life on its own. Yogg-Saron creates this. How? Yogg-Saron also calls himself the god of death, which kind of would make sense. If you have the ability to give life, then you automatically also have the ability of death, because only things that are alive can actually die. In the meantime, we can be assured that the evolution of another Galakrond will not be triggered by consuming unfiltered water. Once purification is complete, an additional benefit will be found in offering the infused water to dragonkind. So they literally created the aspects of the dragonflights from purified water that Yogg-Saron created. By ingesting the water or causing their eggs to absorb its effects, it should be possible to keep even the most willful dragons aligned with the Titan's philosophies. Our efforts to bring the proto-dragons in line have faced resistance, but I am formulating a strategy to speed the process along. Construction of the facility atop the halls of infusion is proceeding apace. Though the station is to be designated Uldoris, I must reluctantly report that the dragons have taken to calling the structure by the name of Tierhold. Is the first boss of Halls of Serenite infused watcher? Look at its model. Give me a link, I am Sandman. We already know what the waters of Yogg-Saron can do from Ulduar. True, actually. Once given life, you are also given death. Package deal. True. Very fucking true. Alright, so it seems like... Okay, something weird is going on here, boys. Though the station is presented Doris, I must reluctantly... Okay, so... I will do my best to ensure our Titan-forged workforce does not also adopt this embarrassing pseudonym, but as of late, they seem to be expressing more and more opinions of their own. In closing, let me underscore once again how fervently I disagree with the assertions of the Prime Designate Odin concerning the unsuitability of the dragon aspects. I have every confidence that they will prove fervent allies on our shared goals of keeping the world structured and disciplined. Ever your friend, keep it tier. Yeah, you had Freya's workshop with those magical waters. You had Yogg-Saron with his waters as well. Dude, what if everything we know, or everything that we've been led to believe by the Titans, what if all of it's a lie? What if everything is a lie? From the original stories of how the universe came to be, to the stories of Azeroth, and how Azeroth came to be ordered. We're told that they created the Emerald Dream, and that from the dream, life existed. So life came from the dream. We're now learning that Yogg-Saron is the one that created living waters. Literally water that either is alive or can give life. I think the latter is more sort of accurate in this instance. We also are told that it's clashes between the light and the void that created the Twisting Nether, which kind of again confirms that the void has this ability to give life. What if all life on Azeroth were created not by the Titans, but by the void? It says so in this original book, where they said, in the second one here, attribute all accomplishments and works of wonder to the Titans alone. Despite the relentless arguments made by some of you, this is not a fallacy. After all, can anything truly be said to exist until it has been ordered? Of course not. And then they speak about it in the lore book here, where they speak of mortals. And they say mortals are, we're sort of all over the place and we're very chaotic, so we should be brainwashed. We should be controlled, ordered. So in other words, everything that was created by the old gods. When the Titans arrived here, life was already created. The Titans interfered with the process of the old gods. The Titans invaded the old gods. Now this starts a whole new list of questions and a whole new list of speculations for all of us, because now the question becomes, were the old gods actually trying to corrupt Azeroth in the first place? D-Rocker, you ask a very interesting question here. What if the old gods came from Azeroth? Not from the outside. And I'll tell you for why. Every move that Azeroth made Magni take, everything that Magni did, led to the freeing of N'Zoth. Legitimately, we freed N'Zoth due to Magni. Every move that Magni took, every step that Magni took, led to Sargeras stabbing Azeroth. In other words, Azeroth wants to wake up. Azeroth needs to break the chains, the shackles that have been placed around her by the Titans. The Titans tell Sargeras that they found another one like them, but stronger than anything they have ever encountered. And then they spend a shit ton of time here claiming that they are creating life. They create the dragon aspects to keep order and structure. Dude, I'm just going to put that out there. What if Azeroth is the mother of the void? Yeah, Sargeras wanted to free her. So I'll tell you guys why. In Shadowlands, it's kind of inferred that Sargeras served Zuvul. But that's not true. The Nathrezim go to Sargeras. They tell Sargeras about the old gods and the threat of the void. Sargeras is then said by the Titans. Again, that story comes from the Titans. We don't know this. Not one of us have ever spoken to Sargeras. The Titans tell us that Sargeras spoke to Nathrezim, and the Nathrezim told him about the void, and that the void is the ultimate threat within the universe. This is what the Titans tell us. The Titans then also tell us that Sargeras carved a planet in half that was infested by the old gods. The Nathrezim then go to Sargeras and they tell him, they give him the Helm of Domination, and the sword, Frostmourne. And they instruct him on how to create a Lich King. Sargeras doesn't actually create a Lich King, though. Sargeras simply creates a being that will open the way for his demonic army to reach Azeroth. He does not give this Lich King a body. It's only after Zuvul convinces Arthas to come to the Frozen Throne that Zuvul finally gets a body. So did Sargeras actually serve Zuvul? Dude. What if Sargeras was never the enemy? Sargeras claims, at least in the book in the Warlock Order Hall, the demons claim that Sargeras had a vision where he falls through the planet Azeroth, and while he's falling through the planet, Azeroth opens one of her eyes, and upon seeing her face, upon looking into her eye, he is enthralled with her. I believe that's the exact word they used, enthralled. He is taken by her. Sargeras didn't want to kill Azeroth. He wanted to free her. He knew what the Titans had done to her. He understood what the Titans had done. He understood the lies of the Titans. The fact that the Titans are not, as it were, the beings that order the universe. They're the beings that create the universe in the image of the first ones. The first ones are referred to as the progenitors of the universe, but they create these Zereth realms, and they can't create life, not actual life. Again, look at everything that comes out of Zereth Mortis. It's constructs. It's not life. It's not actual life. It's constructs. Life, on the other hand, is created, so far as we can tell, only by the old gods. At least in terms of records we actually have, we know that the old gods created life. We know that the old gods were the ones who gifted us mortals with the curse of flesh. We're probably going to find out that the disease that ran through the Vrykul was also old god inspired. We know that Yogg-Saron, an old god, has the ability to create living waters. I would like to go so far as to say that the Well of Eternity was also referred to as living waters, if I'm not mistaken. Life bloomed around the Well of Eternity. It is the Well of Eternity that actually created the elves. When the trolls settled near the Well of Eternity, the life-giving forces of the Well of Eternity is what created the Night Elves. D-Rocker, Yisaraj being pulled out is at this point unimportant. Because that is the old god, or that is the Titans killing an old god. But think about this. Yogg-Saron has the ability to create living waters. Azeroth's blood creates living waters within the Well of Eternity. Is that a coincidence? I mean, it could be that the writers just didn't know this. But I don't... that would be one hell of a coincidence if that's... Dude, there's too much coincidence. I'm telling you right now, the old gods are the original creators of life, and Azeroth is literally their god. Azeroth is their mother. They are part of her. It's not a case of they just arrived and did some stuff. No, they were here first. Maybe Visceraj evolves it, and Azoth gives us knowledge. It's probably how it's supposed to work. That's probably how it's supposed to work. Oh my god, okay. Dragonflight has just gone from like a 7.5 on my hype meter to like a solid 20, bro. I am so fucking hyped for this expansion. You have no idea. Because this is how you do retcons. You take things that already is ripe for retconning because we don't have so little information on it, and then you expand it, but just enough to get us interested. Not so much that it answers all of the questions. It's just enough. Just a taste of what we can look forward to. This is good writing. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is the kind of writing that I expect from World of Warcraft, and I really hope we get more of this. Azeroth from the Titans. The old gods were trying to protect Azeroth from the Titans, yes. That was 100% what they were trying to do. They were trying to protect not only the Azeroth from the Titans, they were trying to protect us from the Titans. Again, think about this. N'Zoth never wanted to kill us. Never. What happened in the dungeon in Battle for Azeroth? Where we're literally told that N'Zoth is testing us. N'Zoth had no interest in killing us. Why would he kill his own creations? Why would he kill his own children? He doesn't want to do that. He wants us to see. He wants us to realize that we are serving the ultimate enemy. The light has struck a bargain with the enemy of all. It's the Titans. Actually, it's not the Titans, it's the first ones. It's the progenitors. Because the Titans, the Eternal Ones, they're all children of the first ones. They're children of the progenitors. The ones who came into... So, the brokers may have completely misunderstood the book. So just the food for thought. Old gods are termed a cancer. We know Azeroth has void in her core from the Magni Nightmare scenario from Legion intro. We know Yogg and then N'Zoth had access to the dream. We know what happens when the dream is given free reign from the Spormons, which are suspiciously old god-esque. Dude, everything is starting to click. It's just all coming together. Because the brokers read it wrong. The brokers say, right, that there were 6 forces and then there's 1 force that seems to be on the outside. That's not actually true. There was 1 force and then the other force superimposed itself on this 1 force. So it's not that the other force is on the outside. It's that the other force is trapped on the inside. They trapped Azeroth. They literally bound Azeroth at the center of their universe and used her to create everything else. She's a slave to the Zereth realms. I would not be surprised. Oh my god, bro. So many lights are going off at the same time. Where did Duval go to dominate the entire universe? To the sepulcher of the first ones. Who was Duval fighting in his final battle? Who was Duval fighting in his final battle? Not us. He was trying to kill Azeroth. Remember, we had to heal Azeroth. He was literally throwing bolts and shit at Azeroth. We were defending Azeroth against Zuval. You see, because Zuval got influenced. Zuval got infected. Remember the waters of Zereth Mortis says that it hides some kind of darkness? So if the waters of Zereth Mortis, underneath it, there's some kind of darkness. Zuval got infected. Zuval saw what the first ones had done. He realized that the first ones, their system was broken. Because Azeroth would not be locked up forever. And if Azeroth were to get free, we would all be fucked. So his idea was, just kill the bitch. We already have all the tools. We can create the perfect universe, but we have to kill the force that stands against us, which would be Azeroth. He couldn't actually dominate the universe whilst Azeroth is alive, because Azeroth is too powerful. Azeroth is the creator of life. Azeroth is the creator of choice. Azeroth is the creator of freedom. So, as long as Azeroth is alive, domination of the universe will never actually be possible. He needed to kill Azeroth so to dominate the universe. Because Azeroth is the true creator of the universe. The old gods are of Azeroth. Bro, this is nuts. This shit is nuts. Oh my god. But wanted the opposite instead of free her, kill her? Yes. Because in the case of Sargeras realized the evil of the Titans, the evil of his brothers. Zuval did not. Zuval saw Azeroth as the ultimate enemy, the thing that needs to be destroyed. Because the first one's plan has to be protected. Whereas the Titans, the normal Titans, and then also the Eternal ones, they're happy with the system as it works. Azeroth lies chained at the center of the universe. Azeroth creates all anima and all life. That life, that anima, is what fuels them. So why would they kill the thing that fuels them? Without Azeroth, they die. This is mind-blowing stuff, bro. Okay, so now that we know all of this, I'm going to answer a lot of your questions right now. So now that we've read these books, right, and we've gone through all of these books, let me put it to you this way. Zuval warns that a cosmos divided will not survive what is to come, whatever it is to come. What is to come is the waking up of Azeroth. That is what is to come. Because right now, the cosmos is divided. Every single one of the cosmological forces, the forces of the progenitors, of the first ones, work alone. They work against one another. They're constantly infighting and constantly trying to get a leg up on the others. If Azeroth were to wake up now, she would destroy them. This is why Zuval wanted to kill Azeroth and then dominate the universe to ensure that a universe will never again be divided. So if Azeroth isn't the only of her being, because I'm not entirely, here's what I'm not yet absolutely sold on, is Azeroth a being of the force of the other, or is Azeroth the other? That I'm not entirely sure of. What I know now, almost for certain, after going through all of these fucking books, what I can tell you, I mean, the Titans literally hide evidence about the Black Empire. The Titans tell us that, the Titan Keepers are instructed to convince everyone that the Titans are the ones that ordered and created everything on Azeroth, even though that's not true, because otherwise, why would you lie? If it was true, you wouldn't have to lie about it. You could just leave it. Yogg-Saron creates living waters. By the way, that's exactly what happens in the Well of Eternity. The blood of Azeroth is living waters. It creates life. Life teems around the blood of Azeroth, and the trolls literally become night elves at the Well of Eternity. The fact that Yogg-Saron can do that too, I don't think is mimicked. I don't think it's stolen from Azeroth. I think it's literally because he is from Azeroth. They are the creatures of Azeroth. They are her beings. It's life created in a chaotic sphere. It's not ordered. That's why the old gods look the way that they look. That's why we view them as chaotic, and we view them as monsters because they have multiple eyes and multiple tentacles, and because it's chaotic. It doesn't have order, it doesn't have a structure, it's free. But the Titans influenced us because they are working for the progenitors. They're working for the first ones. And the first ones are afraid of this other force because the first ones can't actually create life. They don't have the ability to create life. And if you do not believe me, go to Zereth Mortis. Look at the creatures within Zereth Mortis. Look at Zuval. When Zuval finally dies, he loses his pretend body and goes back to being a construct. Because the first ones couldn't create life. They don't have that ability. Those two forces that the brokers were talking about, two forces at the beginning, one force then created all of this and the other force is sort of on the outside. The other force was never on the outside. It was locked in the center of the system that the first force created. That's Azeroth. That's a being of this other force, or it is the other force. This is the one part that I don't know yet. And I don't know if we're gonna know. We'll have to wait and see what Steve Denuser comes up with here. But so because they can't create life, they need the other force. That's the thing. The two forces at the beginning, it's the forces of life and death. Or at least the forces of life and death insofar as, I don't even have a word for this, because it's not actually life and death. It's more, what would a being be called that can create constructs and order but cannot create life? It's not death, right? What would you call that? Like if you were to do a macro level thing, right? So it's very macro, it's very big. What would you say that is called? Like maybe spirit and good versus evil? Maybe light versus dark could actually be better. Maybe that's a good one. Actually, that also doesn't work. Let's just call them A and B for now because I really don't have a word for it. But the first ones are very proficient at creating ordered constructs that don't think for themselves, but constructs that can do. The whole light void, guys, we have to completely lose this. Actually, that's a good one, Apocalypse. We can look at the two forces, the original forces as life versus synthetics. So life versus AI. The origin forces of our universe is literally the battle between life, actual real intelligence, and AI. The first ones is an AI construct. It's a thing that can create. It can't create real life, but it can mimic it really closely. It can almost get there. That's why Zuval and those beings, the Dark Lord, thanks so much for the gifted sub. Did really appreciate that. Growing the DJ Nation, appreciate you, fam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. They can sort of mimic it, and they do it very well. It's almost convincing. When you go into Zeroth Mortis, there are beings that look so convincingly lifelike, but they're not lifelike. They're constructs. They're meant to mimic life, but they can't actually create life. It is Azeroth and the Void, what they call the Void, which is not actually the Void, but it's referred to as the Void because the Titans needed it to be the enemy, needed us to be afraid of it. So the Titans call it the Void, but it's not the Void. It's what can create life. And so the Titans decide to use this ability because they themselves cannot do it. They decide to lock her up. They decide to bind her within the center of the galaxy. And from her life, they would then order all existence. What they didn't plan on, their idea was to create beings that would have anima, because Azeroth is where anima comes from, and the anima would be the fuel, and then those beings would be relatively mindless. So mindless beings that just walk around, and this would be a never-ending cycle of anima that would be fed into the system. Azeroth and the Titans, Azeroth and the Old Gods, then create the gift of flesh. Not the curse, the gift. Infecting actual constructs with a curse. The ability to live. And what is interesting, that as soon as we find the ability to live, as soon as we are freed from our construct nature, we scatter. We don't continue to work for the Titans. We don't continue on the path. We are finally free. In fact, we're so free that the book suggests they can't keep up with us. We're traveling so fast and so far over Azeroth that they can't keep up with us. Almost as if we're running away from them. The heretics that the book speaks of may in fact be Titan Keepers that saw the truth. Sargeras, as the Apocalypse said, also referred to as a heretic. Heretics. The ones who realized what the Titans were doing. Realized the evil of the Titans. The evil of the Titan Keepers, of Odin, of Tyr. Dude, I'll ask again, what if everything we believe up until this point has been a lie? What if the Titans lied to us? What if we already know the Chronicles lied to us, but what if the Eternal Ones have lied to us? What if everything has been a lie up until this point? Because as far as I'm concerned, this throws everything out of whack. This destroys the entire fucking story that we've been told. The lies of the Titans. The Titans did not create the Emerald Dream. The Titans did not create life. They simply ordered it. I mean, it says here in the book, it says, coming to the end, despite the relentless arguments made by some of you, this is not a fallacy. After all, can anything truly say to exist until it has been ordered? Of course it can. Whether it is ordered or not ordered, it exists because it exists. So they found, this is what's interesting. It is said that the Titans don't actually have a word for ordered and a word for creating. It's kind of the same word. That's because the Titans can't create. They can only order that which has already been created. It's misdirection. It's part of the lie. That's what that is. Ferorius, thanks for the tier and sub, bro. Really appreciate that. 40 months in a row. Part of the DJ Nation. Appreciate you, fam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Akko, I guess the newser was right. We just needed to wait and see. Apocalypse, that's a whole different story. This is good. This is fucking amazing. That does not take away from the Shadowlands fiasco, but I will admit that this does make Shadowlands a hell of a lot better. I may actually change my mind about Shadowlands now. It's sort of hindsight, right? So it's kind of like watching your favorite series, and then it's kind of like I would put it in the same vein as Supernatural, right? So Supernatural, the Leviathan season. The Leviathan season was absolutely miserable, but the Leviathan season became better with more information. Not great, but better. Shadowlands is kind of like that. Now that we get more information around things sort of post, right, of Shadowlands, these things start to make sense. Although a lot of these things may actually have been from Shadowlands that they decided to move into Dragonflight. This is good. I like this. Makes sense. If you construct a building, you kind of create it, but you didn't create the raw materials, but you ordered it into something meaningful. So he says, yeah, but according to them, the ordering that they did doesn't even seem to be that meaningful. It seems to be more brainwashing. So limiting it. In other words, it's not so much order as it is limits. The Titans don't order, they create limits. They go in and they say, okay, this thing can only grow this tall. This thing can only grow here. There can only be so many of it. As a mortal, you can only know this much, and we're not going to tell you any more. They even call us problematic in that sense, because we can't be trusted with anything, and therefore they should lie to us because our brains, our minds are not developed enough to handle the truth. They hide the first ones from us. We know that there are more Zeroth realms now that basically pop up more and more constructs. Dude, I mean, everyone's going to have their own opinion, but I'll just say, fuck my life. Fuck my life. This is huge. I love this. Yeah, right there. This should have been what we discovered in 9.2 with the Odin storyline that was cut and turned into this. No, that's actually true. Because a lot of this has to do with Odin. So, yeah, this was probably what we were supposed to discover. In the Dragonflight beta. Oh, congratulations, my Noir. Remember the quest in Zeroth Mortis where the constructs were evolving to have vines as part of their bodies, and the little keeper said this must be eradicated, and the lead one said no, this is beautiful, and they let them live. So it seems life found a way even back there. Life will always find a way. But I wonder if a lot of that doesn't have to do with corruption. Nah, seems like this guys need a good old full of their system. What do you mean? How can the old gods be the good guys, though, and the creators? Have you seen the old gods? They're all deformed and look monstrous and evil. Dude, I literally answered that. Depends on your view of corruption. What do you want to tell us, Aeschylus? What's wrong with the Dragonflight beta? Or is the beta now currently available for everyone? Is that what you want to tell people? Oh, right. Oh, it's a nuts joke. Lol. Oh, shit, you guys. This is fucking amazing. Oh, I'm so happy. It's been so long since we've lost fucking nerded out over WoW lore. Man, I'm happy. This stream has not... Like, there are actual people in this stream right now that probably haven't seen me nerd out at WoW lore ever. Like, you guys joined with Warhammer stuff. You've never seen me this excited. We used to do this 6 hours a day back in, like, Legion and Shadowlands. Like, I would go live and we would just nerd out for, like, 6 hours on WoW lore. Just different theories and discussions and shit. Those were the days, bro. Those were the fucking days. So this makes me happy. I really hope we get more of this. Like, he's just finished having sex, smoking his vape, smiling, looking happy. Dude, when WoW is good, WoW is real good. I recommend you looking into the Warhammer lore of Avalon and the story of Anarian, since it seems that will all be applicable to WoW shortly. We could, but I have something else that I wanted to watch first. Like, I've promised people that we will watch this. Yeah, she's got the good booty. I mean, she might be abusive as fuck, but she does have the good beauty. The good booty. Lifelines confirmed? Well, there's almost definitely a Zeroth realm for life. Whatever that realm is, don't know yet. Personal viewing for theory building? Oh yeah, Apocalypse, that I could do. Yeah, that I could 100% do. No, I told you guys that we're gonna watch a video. What's the guy's name again? Fuck. Gonna have to check quickly, hold up. Just gotta... Fuck, okay, never mind. I told you guys there's a video that I wanted to watch, which has to do with God, which is like a... At least for me, this was very interesting. This guy is very interesting. I haven't watched this video yet, though. Can't wait to lash Goody Palace with my succubus. So which one? Well, I'm trying to see. I want to get the right video. My brother told me about one of his interviews, which was with, oh, what's the fucker's name? Dude, what's the guy's name? He's like a skeptic. He's like a well-known skeptic. Schwimmer, I think. If I can remember how to fucking write his name, though. Is it this one? Yeah, this is the one. I think so. I fucking hope this is the one. Michael Schwimmer. Yeah. Stevie Webs, how you doing, brother? Alex, you bastard, with the tier 1 sub. 24 months, part of the DJ Nation. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Alright, so I promised you guys, like, what was this? I promised you guys probably 2 weeks ago that we would watch this. So the guy's name is Stephen Meyer. Stephen Meyer is a scientific philosopher, and he highlights a number of problems within evolutionary theory, as well as within the scientific model. And his sort of approach is that God is real. Now, the God that he describes isn't quite the God that you're thinking of. Whether or not he's Christian, I'm not entirely sure, but he's describing a mind. So he believes in intelligent design, rather. He believes that nothing could actually be here without intelligent design. So it's not so much that it's God, but more that there has to be some kind of intelligence behind it. Now, every debate so far that I've seen this guy have, okay, and I've only seen snippets, really. I've never watched a full debate, but based on the snippets that I've seen, and I've seen a snippet of him talking to Richard Dawkins, not even Dawkins had answers to some of the problems that he highlighted. This guy really seems to have thought through everything, but yeah, it's kind of wild. So it's let's see. I don't know if this is the right video, but I'm hoping.
Okay. Okay, my guest today is Stephen C. Meyer, the famous intelligent design theorist. His book is Return of the God Hypothesis, 3 scientific discoveries that reveal the mind behind the universe. Stephen received his PhD from the University of Cambridge in the philosophy of science. He directs the Center for Science and Culture at the Discovery Institute in Seattle and authored the New York Times bestseller Darwin's Doubt and Signature in the Cell. And this is sort of the 3rd volume of his trilogy in building his arguments for there being an intelligent mind.
I should probably just change the title so people actually know what the fuck we're doing. And don't come in here going, dude, what the fuck? This is not YouTube maintenance.
Behind the Cosmos. I'm skeptical, and so he and I go back and forth on at least a dozen different major issues in which I push back on all of them, and he has, of course, rebuttals because there's nothing he hasn't heard from any of us. So to that extent, it's a phenomenal conversation. Talk about everything, physics and biology and consciousness, morality, why there's something rather than nothing, and information theory and the laws of physics.
Okay, so he's not lying here. It's something I read about him. He frustrates scientists to no end because he's genuinely been thrown with almost every argument there can be from a scientific standpoint as to why God isn't real, and he debunks all of it. Like, whenever scientists come up with anything, he has an answer to it, and the answers are usually incredibly rational. He's not one of those guys, at least in the one full debate that I've watched of his, he's not one of those guys that just goes, oh, God did it. Never. It gives you actual scientific sort of process of going from this is what happened and this is where God fits into it. So you can actually follow along with the argument. I just found it incredibly interesting.
And the mathematical universe and on and on and on. It's a phenomenal conversation on the biggest questions of all. And the ultimate one, is there something behind it all? Something like a God or an intelligent designer, a mind? Well, to find out the answer, give this a listen. Thanks for listening. All right, Stephen Meyer, here it is. The Return of the God Hypothesis. 3 scientific discoveries that reveal the mind behind the universe. Well, all right. You and I have done debates over the years many times, and we're not going to do that today. Let's just have a conversation. Let's just talk about, the big, a lot of fun, the big questions. Yep. And the problem with debate, and I'm probably never going to do them again because, people are just trying to win. And it's more tribal, and it becomes more political in that sense. And I find that not so useful. So let's just see what kind of headway we can make. We can just leave off the table.
What's interesting about that, it's one of the reasons I hate debates as well, is because everyone's just trying to make that gotcha point. Like, people are just trying to lead people towards the, oh my God, gotcha, so that the audience can be like, whoa, he fucking got him. When in reality, debate is supposed to be about learning. I'll give you guys a good example of this. Yesterday, we were watching videos about aliens. And a lot of you came into chat going, the reason aliens don't exist is because of the Fermi paradox. Bitch. You guys do realize that you don't understand what the Fermi paradox is, right? The Fermi paradox is literally a scientific exercise. It was dreamt up by scientists as an exercise. They laid out the ground rules for the exercise and they said, okay, if these are the ground rules for life, how would aliens exist? It's a puzzle. It's supposed to be a puzzle. That's why it's called a paradox. It's a puzzle that's meant to be solved. They were never claiming that aliens are not real, or that there are no aliens, or that aliens haven't arrived on Earth yet. That's not what it was. They were literally coming up with an exercise in logic that other scientists were sort of tackling, trying to come up with good arguments against the Fermi paradox. But that is only when you're supposed to be in the, like, you're only allowed to argue within the confines of the paradox, because that's what a puzzle is. If I gave you an obstacle course, right, and you walked out the gate around to the other side, you can't claim that you finished the obstacle course, because you didn't finish the obstacle course. You just walked around it. So you would have to go through my obstacle course. But my obstacle course is just an obstacle course. It's not a thing. It's not life. It's just an obstacle course. The Fermi paradox is exactly the same thing. It's not proof that there is no alien life, nor is it even conclusively used as evidence for no alien life. It's a puzzle that was meant to be fun for physicists. An idea of, let's say all of these things is barriers. Let's imagine that there are barriers to life, like technology getting so bad that it's going to blow people up. So they were making assumptions about what could end human life. They were making assumptions about how traveling would work and how you would traverse the stars. And then they said, based on these assumptions, how would aliens reach us? So people who use the Fermi paradox, I'm not saying all of you did that, but there were some people in chat that absolutely uses, and this is now the second time that has happened, where people will use the Fermi paradox as a reason why they don't believe in aliens, which is fucking stupid. Because you're basically saying the reason that life doesn't exist is because I have this puzzle of the globe, and it's just a puzzle, bro. Like, there is no Earth because the Earth is just this thing on this puzzle. Saying, no, you just made a puzzle of the Earth. The Earth still exists. You just built a puzzle of the Earth. That's not evidence that the Earth isn't real. It's just a puzzle, bro. It's just a picture that you put together and it happens to resemble the Earth, right? So, yeah, anyone that uses the Fermi paradox as a reason for why alien life or intelligent life in the universe doesn't exist and why intelligent life couldn't be with us does not understand the Fermi paradox.
You're trying to convert me or I'm trying to convert you. We're not even going to do that. We're just going to talk about the big issues.
our mutual friend Brian Keating told me you wished
exactly, Ace.
Would go secular. So, but
oh well, there's always
we probably both feel the same way. We wish everyone had our worldview. But I've had some really nice debates with you and with Michael Ruse, and one thing that I have felt is that anyone who takes these big questions seriously is a friend, and that there's this kind of kinship between people who are interested in these things. And I read an article over the weekend by someone who said that the great thing about the new atheists, and this was a young Christian writer, was that they actually took religion seriously enough to make an argument about it. You know? And,
yeah, that's right. So, well, we should take religion seriously. I mean,
we have that in common.
It's an important institution and so on. Well, before we get into it, just for my listeners that don't know much about you, give us a little bit of a autobiography of where you grew up and your education and where you work now and what.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from the Seattle area originally. I went to university as an undergrad at Whitworth University in Eastern Washington. It's a small liberal arts college affiliated with a Presbyterian tradition. I majored in geology and physics and took a minor in philosophy on the side. After graduation, I worked for 4 years in the oil industry. I was doing seismic digital processing for a big oil company in Texas. And I got a Rotary Scholarship my last year to head off to England and did first a master's in the history of science and then a PhD in the philosophy of science at Cambridge. My PhD dissertation and study was in the field of origin of life biology. So it was a very interdisciplinary topic. And after I got out, I came back to Whitworth and taught there for a number of years. In 96, 6 years into my tenure, I helped start the Center for Science and Culture at Discovery Institute. In 2002, came full-time, resigned my position at Whitworth and came full-time to work with Discovery. Since which time I've been engaging folks like Michael Shermer and Michael Ruse and writing books and articles, and had a role in the formation of the Intelligent Design Research Program.
Yeah, I should say, point out to my listeners, and you mentioned this in your book that not all scientists take you.
Oh, or no, he studied science and geology, and then eventually went on to study the philosophy of science. But this guy is so fucking well read, dude. You hear it in, I don't know if you're gonna hear it in this discussion, but in some of these discussions, like one of the discussions I heard, the guy brought up a scientific experiment. Then suddenly this guy goes, oh, you're talking about the paper that was published this year, in this article. Yes, that's what the paper said about this, and this, and that's where the paper went this, and this. And you're like, dude, how the fuck do you just know this shit? Like, so many times where the guy brings stuff up and he's like, oh yeah, you're talking about this paper that was published there. Yeah. Okay, so this is what the paper said. That's not exactly true what you said. So he lays it out, and then he lays out why it's completely wrong, or why they got certain facts wrong, or whatever the case may be. Like, he's incredibly well read within the world of science. He clearly does his fucking homework for whatever purpose. I don't know, but he clearly does his homework when it comes to this shit.
Your hypothesis, not just yours, but the other intelligent design theorists, very seriously. I think in part, particularly with older scientists, they're remembering young Earth creationists of the 1950s and 60s, people like Duane Gish and Henry Morris and the Gish Gallop and all that stuff, and none of that panned out at all as even hardly useful to even look at. This is not your father's creationism. I should tell people that this is far more serious. These are not just published by Christian publishers. Your book is HarperCollins. I mean, and same thing with many of your colleagues. These are mainstream trade or university presses that are publishing your works. And, I have a shelf full of books by professional philosophers and scientists addressing your claim. So, you are getting...
He does actually say at one point, let me ask you guys a question. How many of you unequivocally believe that evolution explains all life in the universe? How many of you in chat believe that absolutely? Would you be shocked to know that a shit ton of evolutionary scientists don't even believe that absolutely? Even evolutionary scientists aren't 100% sure, because there's parts of it that doesn't make sense. Parts of their own argument. And I'm not even talking about I'm talking about guys that will simply infer things, right? So they will say, well, okay, we can't get proof that, but we know, right? We know that it must have happened this way. But as far as the actual theory goes, he laid it out in one of it. I don't remember all of it, but I can tell you, the debate around evolution is not settled, as it were. Not for scientists, at least. They don't view it as settled. Like, true, actual scientists don't view the debate on evolution as settled. They have a lot of problems that they still deal with, and a lot of discussions, even from people that absolutely believe in evolution and absolutely believe that evolution will explain all life. Even they admit that it doesn't actually, not right now at least. It still has a lot of problems. We don't learn that, of course. We're told that no, evolution just 100%, it's perfect. We've solved all of the problems. But apparently that's not true for the science. Now, I don't know. I'm just giving you what is apparently true.
In a hearing, it's being taken seriously. And again, this is not your father's creationism. So it's worth discussing. And as well, I've had conversations on the kind of sociology of science and knowledge in general. And, there's kind of a split in the atheist skeptical community about belief in God and religion. And Dan Dennett's argument, well, of course I'm an atheist, but I believe in belief. I believe that other people need to believe or want to believe. And that may be true for some people, but I suspect not for you. You're not claiming this is my truth and you have your truth, or, Noma, you have your world and we have our world. You're making an argument that's empirical. That's a scientific based argument that it's really true, not just mythically true, or psychologically true.
Right. True for me, true for you, true. Yeah. Or Freudian in the sense that man did not create God, but God did not create man, but man created the concept of God. I'm arguing for more than the concept of God, although the concept of God functions as an explanatory hypothesis, and I argue that because it does provide such compelling explanation of key facts we have about biological, physical, and cosmological origins, we have good reason to believe that the concept is also referring to a reality. In the same way, as in theoretical physics, where we posit an unobservable in order to explain something we can observe, when we find that unobservable entity, whether a quark or a force or a field, provides the best explanation of the observables, we hold that postulation as a truth pointer. It's pointing to something that's a reality.
So when we think about how science works, since you're positing a scientific hypothesis to be tested in a way, that testing, that falsification, that Popperian falsification is part of it, but not the only part of it. There's also kind of a Bayesian, moving in the direction of positive evidence that we can accumulate, in which our confidence grows or shrinks, depending on changing our priors as the new evidence comes in and so forth. But there's also then a social aspect that I like to think about is the kind of consensus science. Has science reached a consensus or not? So like when I started college in 1971, the Big Bang Theory had largely ousted the steady state theory. There was a lot of consensus from most scientists in labs, from cumulative independent lines of evidence to point to that and not the other one. And so the Big Bang Theory kind of won out, and almost nobody, I presume nobody, could probably find somebody that embraces steady state theory today, but nevertheless, there's consensus on that. Now, if you're...
Hoyle held on to it to the bitter end, but even Gold and Bondi relinquished that fairly quickly. Yeah, his co-formulators of the theory. Yeah.
So if the accumulated evidence you present in your book along these three major lines of inquiry were true, or that it's substantial evidence, wouldn't most scientists who work in these areas read your book and go, yes, I think that's probably correct? And I don't see that happening. I mean, your book just came out, so maybe that's not fair for your book, but the arguments that you guys have been making since the 90s have been around. So just take Brian Keating's podcast. He read your book. He knows all the cosmology that you present in there. He understands it. And so when I had him on my podcast, I asked him, so did you convert? Are you a theist now? And to be fair, Brian's he's not an atheist like in the Dawkins mode. He's not militant about it at all. He's not something he's trying to do. So, here's what he said, roughly speaking here, without my playing it. I'm using the YouTube transcript. As I read this as a cosmologist, and I find oftentimes, like with William Lane Craig in particular, that it's sort of this, it borders on the confirmation bias. It borders on manipulation of evidence to support a conclusion, and that conclusion always ignores the existence of alternative cosmologies, of which there are many. And in this article for the cover issue of Skeptic, so this article he did for us, I want to flesh out the fact that it is by no means settled that there was a Big Bang. Now listen, I said a Big Bang because it seems to me that if there were multiple Big Bangs, that doesn't give more support for a creator than it might give less support for a creator. Anyway, and he goes off on there. And so, for example, in this article, he talks about inflationary cosmology and the different versions of that. And then this bouncing cyclical models that look something like that. He talks about these kind of multiple Big Bangs. And he says, I'll just read this portion. So there's this one conformal cyclical cosmological model. Claims the universe endlessly cycles through consecutive eons of time in which, as Roger Penrose described it, the distant future of a particular eon becomes identified with the Big Bang of the subsequent eon. In so-called bouncing models, the cosmos rebounds after a contracting phase, ushering in a new expansion. According to Stein, Hart, and Turok, this cycle iterates on trillion-year timescales. So, at the very, whether that turns out to be true or not, who knows? But
I guess to explain this for you guys, so Penrose and others we all know that the universe is expanding, right? And it's also increasingly expanding. So it's expanding faster and faster and faster. Now, the problem is that you have matter that is expanding and expanding faster and faster and faster. Eventually, that matter will reach the speed of light. Once it reaches the speed of light, it's going to dissolve into nothing, because when matter moves at the speed of light, it becomes nothing. And effectively, what it's saying, or what Penrose came up with, is a theory in which he says it's kind of, so the universe expands until it completely stops expanding. So everything turns into light. And then what happens is all of that matter that is now turned into light, has effectively like became unmattered, comes together again as a singularity point and then explodes again and creates another one. So it's sort of like this you can look at it as it explodes, it expands, and then it comes together again, and it explodes, and it expands, and it comes together again. So it continuously just does the same thing over and over and over and over again. That's Penrose's idea about the universe and what the universe is supposed to be.
But the point is that we don't know enough to know that your alternative explanation is the one we should take. Maybe we just don't know, and there's these other alternatives.
Yeah, well, I've got a lot to say about that. It's a great question. First of all, there may be confirmation bias in the scientific community that would prevent majority consensus congealing around something as provocative as I'm proposing. We do know that there is a default rule of method known as methodological naturalism that says that if you're going to be a scientist, you have to explain everything by reference to purely materialistic causes, whether you're talking about even including things like the origin of the universe, the origin of life, its fine-tuning, or the origin and nature of human consciousness. And so if that's taken as normative, then no amount of evidence for creative intelligence could move a group of people who already hold that as normative. That's one thing to say. Second thing to say is I don't accept the premise of the question that these evidences and are not moving professionals who are working in the fields in which I'm talking. I've got some fantastic book endorsements, including from a Nobel laureate in physics, and from leading scientists. But also going back to the 1980s, you had books like God and the Astronomers by Robert Jastrow. You had the very dramatic public conversion of Alan Sandage, who cited evidences from cosmology as a factor in his intellectual conversion from materialism to theism. And so I don't think we can make an argument one way or another from the sociology of science alone. There would be...
I think some people may have missed it. Now, the reason I'm going to bring this up is because he explained it a lot better in a different interview. Somewhere, I think it was like somewhere in the mid 1900s, so somewhere in the 1950s or 1960s, there was a movement that started within the scientific community that basically said, if you want to claim to be a scientist, you cannot, at any given point in time, use anything metaphysical to try and explain anything. Otherwise, you're not doing science, you're doing theology, and that's not science. So they basically said, no explanation for anything in our universe can be metaphysical. It must be material. Because that's science. Science is the study of material things, and therefore everything must be explained through material things. His problem with that is that when you start from that point, so you start from the point of saying, if it's not physical, I refuse to believe it. There's no way of arriving at truth if the truth is not physical. So if it turns out that the truth is metaphysical, so if it turns out that there is creative design, you'll never be able to derive or arrive there with science because you're not allowed to even consider that as a possibility. You may only consider the material. So his problem is that it closes science off to possible answers to the universe, because only answers that deal with the material will ever be allowed. And I think that is, in my opinion, I think that's a good view to hold. Now, I guess, let me just sort of highlight what I think before we go on. I would describe myself as agnostic, not necessarily atheist. I used to be atheist. I'm now far more agnostic. I don't know if there is a God, but I know there's a God, or I believe there's a God, but I don't know if it's the God of religion. So what I mean by that is, I don't believe in the mythological tales of religion. I don't believe in the stories of religion. I find, for me, if there is a God, that intelligence is something completely different to what the Bible or the Quran or any of the religious books highlight. And the reason for it is, I don't think that intelligence cares about the inner workings of what we do and how we live and things like that. I think that intelligence is much more nuanced, but also much more personal. So I think that intelligence exists within every single cell. It's the very thing that made the first proteins sort of develop into life. That is the intelligence. I don't see it as this. It's everywhere, but it's also in everything. It's not a guy that sits in the clouds that judges people, at the gates of heaven or anything like that. I don't believe in that sort of God. The God that I believe in can be better explained through the matrix theory almost. I believe it's a matrix. I believe that we exist within a matrix. I believe that things like demons, as the Bible referred to them, are, for lack of a better term, because it explains it probably a little better, files. We download files, something like a car, for example. So we go ahead and we find this car. It's not a new thing. We didn't discover it. We simply rediscovered it. So it's not like we discovered something brand new. We discovered something within the vector space, within the matrix. And the matrix is made up of different vector spaces. So we discovered this thing. But this thing comes with a lot of good things. It allows us to travel from point A to point B. But it also comes with a lot of bad things. A lot of things that is unforeseen or unintended consequences. Like it pollutes the earth. It does a lot of other things. So our job, or what religion tries to teach people, is to download only the good files, the files that are actually objectively good for you. Only go and find the things that actually make your life better. Don't find the things. So, for example, when they speak about, I'll use a silly example here. Let's say the one about having sex before marriage. That's a file that you download. It's a way of living that you decide to do, right? Why does the Bible say don't do that? Well, because it can create a lot of problems for you, right? A lot of things can go wrong that you might not necessarily have foreseen. A lot of things can happen that you can't even think of until it finally happens with you, right? You can get diseases, you can pass on diseases, you can have children, too many children for you to actually keep up with or to afford. You can ruin your ability, you can ruin your potential happiness because maybe you meet a mate further down the line that isn't okay with the fact that you had sex with other people. So, I'm just using silly examples here because I'm not actually convinced that you can't have sex before marriage. I'm just saying maybe that's why. Maybe because whoever God is and whoever these angels were that spoke to the people in the Bible, maybe they knew that file comes with so many problems that file should potentially not be downloaded. And that's why they say don't download those files. And that's sort of the God that I believe in, but I wouldn't claim that that's religious because I don't think I'm religious. I don't pray. I don't read. I've read the Bible, and I do read the Bible from time to time because I find it interesting, especially Revelations. I find Revelations incredibly interesting, but I'm not religious in that sense, right? I don't adhere to a specific religion within life. But I do think, I almost certainly believe that there is some form of intelligent design out there. There's just, as far as I can tell, there's no way that everything in this universe came to be purely by accident, even if you were to tell me that, dude, it's not an accident, it's just things happening trillions of times over and over and over again, and it just eventually worked out. I don't see it happening. I don't believe that. I don't think it's possible, because it's not just trillions of times. It's more than that. That it would have to have been done right in order for all of it to happen the way that it did. So I almost feel like there's just too many things that would have had to be correct in order for us to exist without some kind of intelligent design. Whether that's God or whether that's whatever, but that's my belief, at least in this.
There could be confirmation bias within the field, and there are plenty of people who have gone the opposite direction of that you indicate. As to Brian, he's an interesting guy. He describes himself as an agnostic who wrestles with God, but he clearly is a theist. He's a practicing conservadox Jewish fellow, and he's told me, maybe I don't know what he's told you, but he's told me that he finds the argument from design and biology quite persuasive. So, but
not cosmology.
Well, interesting. But let's talk about the cosmology, because what I argue is that the evidence has theistic implications. Obviously, there are new models being proposed all the time, but and I address the cyclical and oscillating models in cosmology head on. There's very powerful work critiquing those models, going back to Alan Guth, who showed that with each successive cycle in an oscillating universe, you have an accumulation of entropy. You have to, because there's energy blowing the universe apart. And so to get it, the next cycle has less energy available to do work. You've got an entropy buildup. And therefore, if you'd had an infinite number of cycles, eventually you're going to damp out like a bouncing ball. And if the universe was infinitely old, we would have reached that state of nullifying equilibrium a long time ago. Ergo, the universe couldn't be infinitely old. Ergo, even on an oscillating universe model, you have a beginning. Now, the newer cyclical models have been proposed by Steinhardt and Penrose posit some mechanism with each cycle of reducing entropy, of going back to a highly ordered state. But the mechanisms have no specificity, and they're contrary to everything we know about physics in our universe. And this is where, in our discussions, I love the whole, Skeptic magazine, and I know Brian's got a piece expressing skepticism about the multiverse. But there is a form of naturalism now, which I call in the book exotic naturalism. It's a form of supernatural materialism, where things are posited beyond this universe in order to explain the key features we have the key indicators we have of a beginning to this universe, as well as the fine-tuning of the universe, as well as the deep mystery of the origin of life. And I think there's a tremendous basis for skepticism.
Yeah, but Blasphemous Crow, this is exactly what he's saying. We can't argue about whether or not our universe is an open or closed system, because we don't know. Right now, the scientific theory is that it's an infinite universe. In other words, it's not closed, it is open. So if you start closing the universe, now you have to deal and contend with a lot more issues. So the only way for us right now to look at this is to say, right, what do we know of our galaxy? So in our galaxy, how does things work? And then apply that to the bigger universe, because we kind of know, at least to some extent, how our galaxy works, right? We kind of know how our galaxy works. So we can use those rules and say, okay, if things work in our galaxy this way, then it stands to reason that it should work like that in all galaxies throughout all universes. And if that is true, then you will end up with entropy that will ultimately lead to this system that I explained, where the Big Bang happens and the universe expand until it comes back together for another Big Bang. Every subsequent Big Bang is going to have less energy than the one that preceded it. And so eventually you're going to end up with not enough energy to actually start another Big Bang. Because the energy would have dissipated because of entropy, because we know entropy is real. So that's sort of what he's saying here. You have to make a lot of assumptions in order to get around it, and it is just truly assumption. Because you have no evidence that it is a closed or open system. You're just saying, well, because your one would disprove my belief, I'm gonna propose that it's a closed system. So fuck it, right? But do you have evidence that it's a closed system? Because we have no evidence that it is a closed system. Our evidence support the opposite view. So that's sort of what he's saying here.
About these exotic forms of naturalism, where we're talking about whether we're talking about multiverses in the sense that are invoked to explain the fine tuning, or whether we're talking about an infinite cycle of previous universes to which we have no empirical access by definition, or whether we're talking about Hawking's notion of imaginary time, or even folks positing space alien designers to try to explain the evident evidence for design and the digital informational properties of living systems. I mean, no less a personage than Francis Crick posited panspermia with a design coming from some immanent intelligence within the cosmos, because he recognized the extreme difficulty of explaining the origin of life within this cosmos. Kunin has posited the multiverse as an explanation for the origin of the first life. So I think there's you've made your bread and butter as a skeptic, and rightly so. Many of the things you're skeptical about, I'm skeptical about, but I'm suggesting that there is an appropriate skepticism about these extremely and increasingly convoluted materialistic models that are invoking things beyond this universe, beyond any possible observational confirmation, as explanations for the key features that I'm addressing in the book. So I'm not skeptical about modern cosmology. I think the facts, every indicator we have in cosmology points to a beginning. Of course, we can create imaginative scenarios of multiple cycles before this one, or other verses out there, multiverses, gabillions of them. But I think it's reasonable to be skeptical about them and to weigh whether they really provide a better explanation than the single and more simple postulate in the Occam's razor sense of a transcendent intelligence.
Yeah, I want to dig down into that methodological naturalism, but I had one more example. Since you said Brian was encouraged by the biological arguments for intelligent design, but that's not his field. So I found a review of your book on BioLogos. I know you know those guys. And here I'm reminded of Christopher Hitchens' line about, if you hear the Pope say he believes in God today, you think, well, the Pope's doing his job. That's what he's supposed to do. But if you hear that the Pope says he's having some doubts about God today, you think, whoa, maybe I should pay attention here. So BioLogos, the sort of theistic evolutionists or creative evolution, whatever they call themselves now, you would expect them,
whatever they call themselves, they keep shifting the terminology.
You would think you would.
I just did a long podcast with their guy Jim Stump. So
you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah, interacting with all the different points on the ideological compass here.
Well, then you can respond to this. I'm sure you've seen this review by Daryl Falk. I don't know him. Sure. He's a biologist. He says Mayer's critique of the origin of life and evolutionary biology has significant inaccuracies. For example, discussing the hypothetical RNA world and the origin of life, Mayer writes, quote, "To date, scientists have been able to design RNA catalysts that will copy only about 10% of themselves," close quote. He then references a paper from 2001. However, the field has progressed quite well in the past 20 years. For example, in 2014, Robertson and Joyce reported a similar system with a tweak which resulted in 100% effectiveness. They summarized the results with these words, quote, "Each parental enzyme can give rise to thousands of copies per hour, and each of these copies in turn can do the same, all the while transmitting molecular information across generations." And then he has a discussion about enzymatic reactions and so on. And then he says Meyer goes on to describe a meeting at the New Trends in Evolutionary Biology, which he attended 2016, and this guy was there too. I was at the meeting also. In one sense, I think he's right. The theme of the meeting was that classic gene-based studies of how evolution works were giving a far too narrow picture of how the process of evolution has taken place. There's simply much more to the story than that, which emerges when the focus is on genes. A more holistic approach is required. Meyer summarized the opening talk this way, and quoting you now. In short, neo-Darwinism fails.
Hey, Michael, would it be okay to take these things separately?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Two big subjects.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
The RNA thing.
Do the first one.
And the developmental biology issues. I addressed the Joyce paper in a response to my book that was published in the Times Literary Supplement. And basically what they did was they had two pre-made halves, which they fused together. Okay. And so this was not a significant increase in biological information. And there was a huge amount of, to the extent that they got any replicatory or biological relevance out of their RNA world simulation, there was an incredible input or a significant input of information from the investigator. The investigator has to sequence the bases in the RNA to get any resemblance of function out of it. So these experiments are not simulating undirected evolutionary change. And Jim Tour, who knows a whole lot more about...
Sorry, I constantly stop because he's talking to a fellow skeptic, so someone that knows the science, which feels like he's not explaining this shit well enough. So what they're referring to here is biologists, this specific biologist, came back at him and said, well, actually, your original claim is wrong. So the current way of thinking is that proteins, right? So proteins came together with enzymes and that created life. Because we know that happens. We can see it in our own bodies. Proteins will use enzymes and it will create different cells. And those cells will form part of our bodies. It will become eyes, it will become, skin, it will become liver. That's how proteins and enzymes work, and it creates life. The thing is, in our bodies, there's an intelligence going on. So it's not just a normal protein. It's a protein with a very specific code. And that code then writes based on the code. So when it creates a protein and an enzyme that will eventually become a cell, it's based on a very specific code given to it by something much more intelligent than it. What they then found, because the original idea was if you just take a bunch of proteins and you take a bunch of enzymes and you put them together, it will create something. Turns out it doesn't. If you take a bunch of proteins and a bunch of enzymes and you put them together, it doesn't do jack shit. Like nothing happens. The only way to get it to do something is to physically code the proteins. So you have to intelligently design the protein in order to do something. So once you've intelligently designed the protein, it will do what you designed it to do, but not before that. So that's kind of the argument that this guy made. He said, well, actually, you misunderstand. They did a study where they took two halves of a protein, put it together, and it replicated itself very nicely. So that explains how evolution could have happened. The proteins will just, but it ignores the fact that you already intelligently designed it. You took two different halves of proteins that were already coded, you put it together, and it replicated itself. But in doing that, you intelligently designed it. So you're actually making his point by saying, well, actually, we need some kind of intelligent design in order to do this thing. So we can get the proteins to do the evolutionary thing, which is to procreate and make more of itself. But in order to get there, you need some kind of intelligent design beforehand.
Organic synthesis, then Daryl Falk has been stripping the bark off of these guys in Origin of Life research, pointing out that they're starting with purified reagents. They're implementing an intelligently designed recipe where they combine specific chemicals at particular temperatures, cool them at just the right time, remove the byproducts so that we don't get interfering cross reactions. This field really has made no progress apart from simulations that involve extensive investigator interference where the investigator is inputting information. So I'll stand very firmly by my original critique of RNA world, and people who know a lot more about organic chemistry than Daryl Falk are pointing out the very same problems that I am. Falk, by the way, in his review of Darwin's Doubt, acknowledged, and this gets to your question about methodological naturalism. He said that I was absolutely correct that mutation and selection did not have the creative power to generate the new information needed for something like the Cambrian explosion, and that the newer post-Neo-Darwinian models, which I also critiqued in that book, were also inadequate to the task. His reason for holding on to a general evolutionary framework was his affirmation of methodological naturalism. So the biologist wasn't critiquing the biology in that case. He had a confirmation bias, a pre-commitment to methodological naturalism. Now you may now go on with the stuff.
Fair enough.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's
too
okay.
many things to keep in my head at one time.
Fair
the
enough.
London meeting.
The only reason I'm reading this is because
gene-based evolution.
This guy, premises his review of your book saying, "I'm a born-again evangelical Christian. I accept Jesus. I do believe God operates in the world and miracles and so on."
Right, but we've been having a pretty good fight with those guys too, because what they do is they simply baptize a standard evolutionary theory and say that it's very easy to reconcile with theism. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that doesn't absolve them of the need to address the scientific problems with those theories. And as you and I have talked before, I think it's appropriate to be skeptical about neo-Darwinism, and many leading evolutionary biologists are. It was striking to me at that meeting that people were very explicit about the lack of creative power associated with the mutation selection mechanism, and they were there to investigate other possible evolutionary mechanisms that could possibly supplement that creative power. Susan Mazur, who's been part of the Altenberg 16 group and who was one of the voices calling for the meeting, characterized the meeting as a whole afterwards for its lack of momentousness, that it did effectively a good job of explaining the problems, but there weren't really powerful solutions on offer. And Falk's characterization of this is just a matter of gene-based evolution, that my critique was only about gene-based evolution, is really a misrepresentation of what I argued. I argued, yes, it's absolutely the rarity of genes and proteins in combinatorial sequence space is a huge problem for generating not minor modifications to existing genes or proteins, but generating new protein folds. That's one level of the critique I offered. But at a higher level, I looked at the whole problem of the immutability of gene regulatory networks, which is the locus of Davidson's work at Caltech for years. I looked at the importance in body plan formation of epigenetic and ontogenetic information. These new discoveries about these hierarchies of informational control in life are posing problems for evolutionary developmental biology at every level. It's not just a matter of generating new genes and proteins. So I don't accept his characterization of the narrowness of my critique.
Interesting. But the meeting itself was not proposing what your hypothesis is one of the alternatives on the table.
But I happen to know about 10 to 15% of the people there were ID people. I mean, we were obviously interested in what was being discussed. People like, for example, Gunter Beckley, the German paleontologist, who has announced his support for intelligent design, coming from a deep background in evolutionary biology and paleontology.
I guess my point in this thread is I do wonder, will we ever get to a consensus? Maybe it's 50 years from now, 100 years from now. Or will we never reach consensus science because it has metaphysical, even religious overtones, and people just can't make that leap? I mean, are we forever going to... This is going to be a different question than just say Big Bang versus steady state. This is a different kind of animal.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I wrote the book, and why I think conversations like the ones that you and I have had over the years are so important, because we may not reach consensus, but as I think you're arguing in your new book, we still should be talking to each other. There needs to be free speech in this country, and having these constructive dialogues where we're not stigmatizing each other and stereotyping each other and all that. And these are the most interesting questions. There was a conference at Baylor 20 years ago called The Nature of Nature.
Yeah, I was there.
And it was raising the question. Yeah, you were there. I think that may have been the first time we met, actually, because I think we did our first debate a year or two later at that college in Wisconsin. But these are fantastically interesting questions, and we don't need to be afraid of them. Some people come down. Nature is a self-existing, self-organizing system. It does not require something external to itself to explain its properties. That's the naturalistic view of Sean Carroll and you and some of the aggressive new atheists, and I know you're not part of that group, but fair enough. That's a viewpoint. That's an interesting viewpoint. The other view is that nature has properties that are pointing to something beyond itself and requires something external to itself in order to explain what we see. And I find, and that's generally a theistic view, but one of the things that I was pointing out in the book is there is a kind of materialistic supernaturalism now. I called it exotic naturalism, where where scientists are feeling the need to posit things beyond our universe in order to explain the properties of the universe, even if they're not willing to consider creative intelligence as a possibility. So we get multiverses, and we get quantum wave functions, and we get cyclical cycles of expansion and contraction before the Big Bang. But these questions of ultimate causal origins raise these deeper metaphysical questions. And I think we can have constructive conversations about them. We can evaluate them rationally. One thing I appreciate about Dawkins is he has a great talent for framing issues. And he has this wonderful quote where he says that the universe has exactly the properties we should expect if at bottom there's no purpose, no design, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. Well, of course, blind, pitiless indifference is shorthand for strictly materialistic processes. So he's saying materialism as an overarching system of thought can be tested by looking at the...
You know what's cool about things like this, but also at the same time, probably not so cool? Because I'm not a scientist, I can follow the argument as well as can be expected. But there is a lot of things that they say and a lot of things that they talk about that I just kind of have to take their word for it, because I don't actually know these things. Like, I don't actually know what half the things are that they're talking about. Like, I have an idea of what they're referring to, but I don't know. I guess my question is, why do you find it so interesting then? Because usually humans will not fuck with things that they don't understand. It induces a sort of fear in us. But I find scientific debates and scientific discussions super interesting. Exactly because of, I guess, the fact that I don't understand it. I don't know. Are you guys feeling the same thing? Or do you guys absolutely understand what they're talking about 100%? Like, everything just makes super sense to you? Humans fuck with women they don't understand all the time? Dude, that's not entirely true. We fuck with women that we think we understand, and then we don't understand them, and that causes problems.
Properties that the universe has. I agree with that. I think metaphysical hypotheses are testable, more in a Bayesian way than in the way we do in the lab, where you put something under, do something under controlled laboratory conditions and try to get replicability. So I appreciate Dawkins is willing to engage a big metaphysical question and say we can evaluate, test it by observations we make of the properties of the universe. I just happen to disagree with Dawkins's ultimate conclusion, and I think that there are key properties of the universe that are much more expected on theism than on naturalism. And three that I mention and develop in the book are that the universe, as best we can tell from the empirical evidence, had a beginning, that the universe has been finely tuned for the possibility of life from the beginning and soon thereafter, and that at the foundation of life, we have an integrated informational complexity, digital code, complex information processing, storage, transmission system that boggles the mind and points in every way to a designing intelligence, a master programmer for life. So I think those are three things that you would not have expected on a straightforward naturalistic worldview. You wouldn't have expected a beginning, you wouldn't have expected fine-tuning, and you wouldn't have expected digital code at the foundation of life. And one way we know that's not what you would expect is the number of explanatory postulates, pure theoretical postulates that have to be formulated to save the appearances from a naturalistic point of view. The multiverse is a great example of that. That naturalism has become more and more convoluted in the sense of epicycles of explanatory entities in order to explain the same things that a single common sense appeal to intelligent design or creative intelligence would explain.
Yeah, I was surprised you didn't have a fourth line of inquiry, that is the moral law within. You know, Immanuel Kant's famous line about the two great mysteries of the world are the starry heavens above and the moral law within. Is that your next book, or did you just not have enough space for that? I think there's a great. I used to teach that argument. I have
Steve Meyer version of it, if you will. But I think that valuing is something that only persons can do. I'll give you my version of the moral argument. I used to do this in Intro to Philosophy. Valuing is something that only persons can do. And all ethical systems are based on underlying values. For example, the intrinsic value of human life. If there isn't an objective value or a single person whose opinion about what is most important counts most, then we will necessarily get multiple systems of valuing and therefore multiple systems of ethics, and therefore we will devolve into relativism. But none of us actually live as though all ethics are purely relative. That ethical propositions are only applicable to individual persons or groups. We all in our behavior reveal that we accept an objective ethical system when it's our ox that's being gored, or our mother who's being kicked in the shins, or our child is being abused. Therefore, we act as though there is an objective ethical system. Theism, insofar as it provides or it posits a single ethical opinion that matters more than any other, because theism posits a designer who made the ethical system to encourage human flourishing, provides the best grounding for something that we all tacitly end up revealing that we believe in, which is an objective moral propositions.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I'm a moral objectivist and realist as well, even though I'm an atheist. And I think you can derive it, although
how does that work? Yeah, I'm interested. How does that work for you, Michael? I mean, what's
your
grounding?
It's kind of another long. That was my podcast episode last week.
Sorry.
Yeah, with two theistic philosophers. I didn't even know they were theistic. James Hunter and Nedolewski. Their book was. Sorry, let me just get that straight for my.
I know. He's the sociologist of religion at Virginia, right?
Yes, correct. Yes, correct. Yeah, that's right. Let me give you the title of their book.
That's a nice thought. Single moral structure, but our own actual history clearly shows that people will apply that moral code and stretch it to fit anything, good or bad, that they want to. Yeah, I mean, in this case, that's the problem with humans, right? Because in the theistic view, so if we were to say that the theistic view is correct, the argument is that that we are effectively mini gods, but flawed. So when we were in the Garden of Eden and we sinned, we ate from the tree at the center of the garden, the tree of good and evil. We effectively flawed ourselves. So in other words, there is a universal moral code by which each and every person needs to live in order to maximize human happiness. But because we are flawed in our own views, we can oftentimes apply this moral code in very sort of, let's say, problematic ways, right? So we can find ways of applying this to allow us to burn people at the stake that we think are witches. Even though we have no evidence for their witchery, nor do we know, in fact, that they are witches, we can do so because we have interpreted the moral code as given to us by God in some way that we weren't supposed to do, right? At least that was not how it was supposed to be, as it were. So that is sort of the way that I would look at it if I were to look at it from a theistic point of view. And I know that's how the theists look at it. I don't necessarily believe in a universal moral code or a universal morality or an objective. I think I can agree with an objective morality, because objectively we can agree that there are certain things that lead to human happiness and there are certain things that lead to human suffering. We can agree on that. And I think most people would absolutely agree that there is an objective way of deciding what would make us happy and what wouldn't. So, for example, we can all agree that if I cut off your penis, that would make you unhappy. Whereas if I didn't cut off your penis, that would make you happy, right? As opposed to not cutting off, or as opposed to cutting off your penis. So we could agree that that is an objective moral good, not cutting off someone's penis. That is stuff that we can agree on. universal morality is where I sort of find a lot of issue. Because the universal moral view is something like Sam Harris believes in, this universal moral or universal morality. I reject that because it's not obvious to me that there is such a thing. Because Sam Harris believes that there's no need for a God because human beings are universally moral creatures. So most human beings want to do good, and that our morality is sometimes hijacked by religion to make us do evil things. So in other words, the guy that lives in the Middle East that is a Muslim doesn't beat his wife when she doesn't cover her face because he's an evil guy or because that is what he believes to be the right thing. He's doing it because that is what his religion is telling him. Now, in my view, that is sort of automatically proving that there is no universal morality, because if there was, then the creators of Islam would not have made it okay for people to beat their wives if they don't cover their face, because it would have just been universally understood that we don't do that. The early Vikings wouldn't have gone into England to rape and plunder the villages of England because they would have understood that the universal moral good is that they do not do that. Yet they did do that, and they were perfectly okay with it. The early Vikings would not have killed their neighbor if they had a disagreement and said that that's okay as long as you informed your neighbor that you were going to kill him before you killed him, because they would have known that that is universally not a good thing to be. So I believe that morality, as it were, evolves. And I do think these days we are far closer to what the objective morality would be for humans than we were, say, even 1,000 years ago. But the argument that morality is simply universal does not hold. Because if morality was, in fact, universal, we would not have had vast swaths of history where slavery was considered to be okay by everyone. And we're talking about moments in history where every single person, including philosophers, believed that slavery was a moral good as long as you didn't enslave your own people. Most people believe that. I genuinely reject that idea, because it's clear that our moralities have expanded, but also refined itself quite heavily over the course of even the last 1,000 years. Our morality have changed significantly. So yeah, I don't like the idea of a universal morality, because it sort of predisposes or you have to accept beforehand, or somehow you just have to ignore the idea that morality then only really, or universal morality only really started about 30 years ago, right? So about 30 years ago, we came up, like, universal morality was born. Before that, there was no more universal morality. Well, then it's not universal morality, is it? Because if it was universal, it would have been there from the beginning. So yeah, I can agree with objective morality, but I don't agree with universal morality. I think it's an idiot's way of trying to explain why religion isn't important, because that's really why it's used. Totally agree. I think the closest we can get to a universal morality is at the community level. Yeah, but I mean, even then, it's only the morality for your community then, right? So it's not really universal, it's communal. So you and your community will have certain rules as laid out in some kind of moral code that you agree or disagree on, right? It will still not be universal because it's not shared with all other communities. It's only shared insofar as your community is concerned. But I agree with the premise there, at least. Morality keeps progressing over time, even intraculturally, true. So much so that our morals even differ from our parents, since people are a product of their time. Again, absolutely big true. You're going to have to consider the entirety of human existence and history. I believe there is a universal morality, but we as flawed humans are learning to figure it out. Yeah, but then it's not really universal, because the thing that allows us to figure that out in many ways is actually somewhat religious, right? In many ways, religion, a lot of what we today view as moral goods come from the Bible, at least in the Western world. A lot of the ways in which we deal with each other are just Christian laws. We don't call them Christian laws anymore, but they're literally right there. They structured our society in the way that it is now. The same way that if you look at the Middle East, its societies are very much based on Islam and the works of Islam, and that's where their morality is also derived from. So yeah, I don't know necessarily if it would be universal even then. It might be. I don't know, right? The Bible is what ended slavery. I don't know necessarily if it ended it, because even in the Bible, there is talk of slaves and how you may kill another man if he kills your slave and shit like that, right? So I'm not entirely sure if it ended it, but I think definitely our interpretations of it eventually led to its end. Anyways, I'm quickly gonna play an ad because I want to get another cup of tea, and I also need to go pee. So I'll literally be right back. Gonna play an ad so you guys can get up as well and walk around, whatever the fuck you want to do. In Japan, it used to be a moral imperative to commit seppuku if you brought dishonor on yourself and by extension your family. Blasphemous, very true. Also, I want to get a jacket. It's actually kind of cold at the minute here. So I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, boys. No. Making tea is making tea. To argue that there's an objective morality and some people are just wrong, then the debate becomes who's wrong and who's right. That's always the problem, right? You guys can't be fucking normal, no matter what you do. Wait, really? We have a 50-50 split on the audience currently? 50% of the audience is theist and 50% is atheist. It's a very small sample size because most of you didn't fucking vote, but interesting. Split right down the fucking middle. All right. Let's get back to it, shall we?
Here, sorry. Yeah, this is this week's James Hunter and Paul Nedolewski, right? So their book is Science and the Good, The Tragic Quest for the Foundations of Morality. To their credit, as I told them, halfway through our podcast, when I found out they were theists, I had no idea they were theists. I mean, I read their entire book because I was asked to review it because they critique me and Steve Pinker and Sam Harris and others. And so to their credit, they made all the arguments without ever invoking religion or God or anything like that. Anyway, so I gave them
they were reasonable guys in spite of their disreputable
That's right.
beliefs.
That's right. Now that I know you're a theist, okay, now we're going to take the gloves off. No, just kidding.
Now we're going to really put
well, you know, I agree that it takes persons in the sense that, like all the primate research that Franz de Waal does, you know, primate politics, and they have these kind of pre-moral sentiments. But that's different than the kind of values you're talking about. I think humans are special in that sense. It probably takes some kind of abstract reasoning, maybe even language, to scale up from these kind of pre-moral sentiments that primates have, or maybe all mammals, and then you go from there. I was glad you quoted Dawkins. Let me just read that again. The universe we observe has
go ahead.
The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is at bottom. No design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. Well, I listened to the reading of your book, I noticed it kept coming up over and over and over, and I have a PDF, so I just did a scan of the word pitiless indifference, blind pitiless indifference. 13 times you quoted this. So I gathered this is important.
It's a money quote, my friend. Because he does such a beautiful job of framing the issue, you know.
But you see,
is it or is it not the case that the properties of the universe are what we'd expect on naturalism or materialism, or are the properties what we'd expect on theism? And I think it suggests the testability of metaphysical hypotheses.
That last part.
Go ahead, sorry.
That last part. There's no good or evil. It's just pitiless indifference. My sense is that's what really bothers you, as it would anybody.
No, I'm interested in the metaphysical question itself. I mean, I'm not one of these people that's a theist because if there were no God, that my fragile psyche couldn't take it. I cite Lawrence Krauss at the end. He says the universe doesn't owe us comfort, and so I want to know it's true. And what I appreciate about a number of the new atheists is they took religion seriously enough to say, is it true or not? I think there are a lot of people in the pews that actually don't really believe very much of it. And I think the starting point is to determine, well, is there or is there not a God? I mean, that's a very important question. Or
see that Ilizek, how you doing, bro? You see, the problem with good and evil are human concepts, and each is relative to the individual that it applies. I don't necessarily think I agree with that, insofar as I agree with the first part. Good and evil are human concepts, but not so much that they're human concepts. I actually don't like Lawrence Krauss that much, Voicey. I find his arguments to be incredibly shallow. But, it is what it is. Actually, I shouldn't say shallow. I just find Lawrence Krauss to be... He's very angry at religion, and so a lot of the times when he makes arguments against religion, his arguments are very, very shallow. So it's easy to sort of get around it, and I don't mind that. I didn't even like Lawrence Krauss when I was a full-blown atheist. I preferred people like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and even to this day, I prefer Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris when they speak specifically about religion. I find that a lot more sort of compelling, but anyways, so animals can't be evil. Okay, a lion kills only because it must. Okay, so it has to kill. It needs to eat. Lions don't just run around the savannah killing as many fucking deer as it can get. Right, but it just doesn't do that. It eats only when it needs to eat. So animals can't be evil. Humans, on the other hand, we're driven by more than just instinct. We're driven by more than just base desires. We're driven by base desires, and layered on top of base desires is our rationale and rationalizing of our base desires, which sometimes have very weird implications of that. Let me just get your full quote again, because I don't want to misrepresent what you said. And each is relative to the individual that it applies. You see, that's the part where I sort of go, I don't entirely agree with the each is relative to the individual that it applies to, because I do think there are a set of goods and evils that we could apply to every human being. Everything that falls outside of that set. So if we were to be tasked with this, if enough of us went into a room, we closed ourselves off and we said, okay, we have to come up with a moral code that does good to everyone and outlaws evil to everyone. I think we could do that. I think that would be entirely possible. That every human being, everything that would fall outside of that scope would be, for lack of a better term, shortcomings of the individual. So, someone that votes for the Republican Party might be viewed as an evil by someone else, but that's not actually a true evil. That's just a perceived evil. You're perceiving evil because they happen to vote differently to you. Or someone can look at a Biden voter and think the same thing. But that's not a we wouldn't include that in our moral code if we were to try and come up with, you know, a true morality for things, right? So at the end of the day, I think, like I said, I agree 100% with your first part, and maybe I misunderstood the second part of your argument, but I'm not entirely sure how much I agree with the second part. Write a moral code, but it would be filled with, for edge cases. Disagree. You can put in a number of historical cultures that see different behaviors as good and evil. Oh, but Ilizak, we already spoke about that. I've already said I do not agree with universal morality. I agree with objective morality, which is the case that I just made. If you wanted to increase human happiness and decrease human suffering, there is definitely an objective morality that you could lay out that would increase all humans' happiness and decrease all humans' suffering, even if you did not include all of the perspectives and perceptions of different human beings. You would absolutely be able to do that. Universal morality, on the other hand, I do not agree with. The idea that all humans want and like the same things throughout all time, that's not true. That is simply not true. Because, as you just said there, historical evidence shows that's not the case. Because historically, there was once a time where we thought it was a moral good to have slaves. We don't think that anymore, so clearly something changed. But there was a time where you were very moral if you had slaves.
Is materialism true? Are matter and energy the eternal self-existent entities from which everything else came, the ontological ground of all being, as the philosophers would put it, or the prime reality? Or is it a personal agent? That's been something we've debated in Western philosophy since the Greeks, and I thought, let's get it on, and weigh the arguments on both sides. And his way of framing it also dovetails to this whole Bayesian.
Actually, Voidstyle, if you listen to this guy and you listen to enough of his arguments, unless you are incredibly